Welcome, everyone. For today's webinar, we're going to be going over inventory management. My name is Lori Walsh. I'm a partner here at Fourlane. We do appreciate all of you who have joined. So on to our topic at hand today. So we have inventory, right? It's such a big word, but it's a big deal, right? It's a lot of money and a lot of investment in our company sits on the floor many times. So we want to make sure that we're taking care of it. So there's many ways in QuickBooks that we can manage our inventory, and I want to go through those with you today. It starts, right, with what is inventory management, and that's understanding what is the flow from when we know we need it, how do we know we need it, to when we sell it, what happens, and then when do we need to get some more. All of that is important, and I'm going to show you how QuickBooks handles that in today's webinar. So let's go ahead and get into our sample file so we can get started. Okay, as you can see, you don't really see an inventory center on the front screen because all of these transactions in some way impact our inventory. So if we create a sales order as an example, that tells us that our customers have asked us and we've promised to fulfill their ask. Okay, so we have an obligation that we need to meet with this transaction. But because it's non-posting, we have to use different reports to see them. Okay, same thing on our purchase orders. This means that we have gone in and said, okay, we need some more of these. We've asked the vendor to send them. We've promised the vendor that we would pay for those items. Now, the invoices, receipts, and bills, these will impact our financials. And this also impacts our inventory. So when we receive our inventory, as the name indicates, that means our inventory will go up. When we invoice a customer for an inventory item, that means our inventory will go down. Okay, so deplenishes the inventory. So these are important. And the reason that this is kind of on the top versus in the middle is because we need to make sure we have inventory in order to sell. Okay, so there's some things we'll go through today that you can check and see if your process needs a little bit of some tweaking. Okay, now because our items are so important, I'm going to start there. Okay, and go ahead and create a new one. Now, as you can see, we have many item types. Most of you are probably very familiar with these, but anybody that's new to inventory, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I address this also. So an inventory part versus a non-inventory part is actually two things. An inventory part means I need to know how many are on hand, so that's going to impact my balance sheet as well as my P&L, where a non-inventory part is basically going to impact more on the P&L side because, not that we don't have the AP and AR, but as far as the transaction when it's purchased or when it's sold, the biggest impact for a non-inventory is going to be the P&L because it's going to be recorded at the time it is bought or sold, where an inventory part has kind of another layer. Okay, I'm going to have my inventory asset account. So when I buy it, it's going to sit on the balance sheet until I sell it. Okay, so that's how it's going to impact our financials. But then when I sell it, right, it's going to hit our income, right, and it's going to hit our cost of goods or whatever account we have setting here. Usually it's cost of goods. Okay, so understanding that impact is important, but for today, our focus is on how we're going to see the numbers for our inventory parts themselves. Okay, let's go out here. Now, let me show you one more thing on the preferences, since the foundation and setup is crucial to success. So in Enterprise, if you have Diamond or Platinum, you also have the ability to have advanced inventory settings. So I do have this, and you're going to see this as we go through today a little bit more on what this means. But I have multiple inventory sites set up. Now, this does not mean that I have to have, 3 different locations in different cities or maybe different parts of town. I can actually have different inventory sites within a site, meaning if I have my main warehouse is in the middle, then maybe I have a shipping station out by the the rolling doors, maybe I have a customer hold area or a QC section, I can do that in here as long as I am moving that inventory to those locations at the time they are physically being moved. Meaning if I pick out a piece in the main warehouse to put it in customer hold, I need to come into QuickBooks and take that same item, the same quantity, and take it out of the warehouse, the main warehouse, and move it to my customer hold section, because the reports in QuickBooks should match what's physically out on the floor in those individual locations. Okay. I also have bin locations turned on. A bin location allows us, if we have shelving as an example, I can say it's in the main warehouse in bin A2, meaning if I go down row A and I look into the second bin, these items should be in that location. Now, serial and lot numbers are also something you can add. Now, I do want to caution, we should make sure that our inventory workflow is working at the base level first before we start adding these advanced features. Because if it's not working at the base level, it's not going to work at this level, and it will continue to get more complicated and have more errors, okay? So we want to make sure that we know what each step is adding to our workflow so that we can get that right the first time. But for what we have lot numbers turned on. You have the option for serial numbers. If you're using serial numbers, that will be one serial number per item, or lot number is a batch. Okay. If you're using serial numbers and you purchase like 20 widgets, you will need 20 serial numbers that will need to be attached to each item. Okay. It's easy to do if we have it set up right. We just need to make sure we know what that looks like. We also have expiration dates. For us, our lot numbers are tied to our expiration dates. Now, QuickBooks uses average cost, but we can turn on FIFO. Now, when you look at certain reports, it's still going to show the average, but there are reports you can see the actual FIFO. So if you are using FIFO and you're not sure how to get that, let me know, and we can help you there. Barcodes are so important, right? They help us automate some things. We have two ways to use barcodes in QuickBooks. One is the standard, right, where we're just clicking on it to add it to a transaction such as an invoice, right, or sales order, bill, whatever. But we also have the site operations. Now, they do use two different barcodes, so we can help with that if you're also needing assistance. But with the site operations, which is the sales order fulfillment, a lot of people know it as pick, pack, and ship, or we have the purchase order management. This allows us to assign a device where it goes to that device, triggers for the floor that they need to do the next step, right, which is either fulfilling that purchase order or receiving in the purchase order. And they, in turn, you have an extra dashboard in QuickBooks that you can actually see the steps that have been taken for each sales order or purchase order. Now, landed cost, this one, I was super excited when it actually was automated in QuickBooks. The landed cost allows us to actually take all the components of the product cost and put them together. Meaning, if I am purchasing it where I have duties and fees that I need to pay to get the product to me, or maybe I have extra freight or multiple freight bills that are applicable to specific items, I can now incorporate that into the cost of those items, but I have a way also to make sure that I am not overstating those costs or understating, because I have an account that I can reconcile to make sure that all of those additional costs that are there have been applied. So the landed cost is extremely important in my opinion, because it gives us, if we have an accurate cost of an item, we can have a better price for that item and make sure that we are able to run our business effectively. All right, so now let's go into the way the transactions are going to impact our inventory management. Now, we do have an inventory center, right? So if I have a team that is working inventory primarily, like inclusive, right? That's all they're doing, and I say all. Inventory is not an all, it is a big deal. But if their focus is inventory primarily, We want to make sure that they have everything at their fingertips to make it easy to do what they need to do, right? So in this case, we have all of our items over here, just like we do in our customer, vendor, or employee center, right? So they can click on them and they can see the transactions that impact. You also have the ability to filter, right? Show the specific transaction type. So if they need to search something, especially if we have an issue where, wait a minute, we got that in yesterday, but it's not showing received, this makes it easy to narrow down, right? You can also search for the transaction, or but because we can do it by the part number, right, we can see all the transactions impacting that part number in here. We can attach images, right? So if we have some pictures of, maybe we have 2 or 3 that are very similar, maybe it's a color, maybe it's an extra piece, whatever, we can attach the images so we can see those. Makes it easy for somebody just starting with the business, right? Because it just kind of helps eliminate some of that extra confusion. But I have a lot of information on each item card, okay? I have if I have set a max amount, or if I have a min amount, I can see that in here. I can also see I have a quantity of hand of a negative 67. We should never have a negative inventory. Talk about that a little bit more in a minute. If I have sales orders or purchase orders, I can also see that. So it gives me a lot of information on this screen so that I'm not having to go and track it down through reports. Now, if I do need a report, maybe I need to see where it was last used, or maybe I need to see what it's used in, or something along that line. I have all of these reports right here that are real easy. And as you can see, all I have to do is click on it and it'll drill into that report. I'm going to go from the report center so you can see those in a second, but I just want you to be aware these are over there. Now, because I am using lot numbers, you're going to, and multiple locations, you're going to see some extra reports because it does allow me to manage by a site. So let's say that I have 2 warehouses, one on the east side of town and one on the west side of town, and I have 2 different inventory teams, one on the east side and one on the west. They can manage their own location. They don't have to try to dig that info out to say, okay, we have a total of 20, but I only have 5 over here and they have the rest. I don't have to do that. I can narrow it down by the site number. So as you can see, I have a quantity on hand by site. I can also see that. I'm going to let's go in here and let's do an invoice as an example. All right, if I am looking at this item as an example, this little box that pops up, if I click on that, it will show me that right now I don't have enough to do anything because I have a negative. I also have 20 sitting on a sales order, but I've only ordered 3. Okay, now I'm going to show you some reports that are going to give us this in a higher level, but I want you to see, okay, so this indicates immediately I don't have enough. I'm not going to have enough because I haven't placed an order for more. I need to trigger purchasing somehow to say, hey, we need some more. Okay. Now, if I'm going to show you how the purchasing side is going to see it as well, so that they can manage, right? Because they're going to help us, right, in what we're doing. All right. So this little box is very important for everyone to have that visibility. So I want to make sure, because we can also see this if I go into a bill as an example. See the item side. If I put that item in there, I have that same little box, right? And so I can see that same type of information, what's on a sales order, what's on a PO, and how many I actually have. Right. Let me get out of some of these windows. All right, so let's look at the inventory reports themselves. Okay, so this is how we're going to tie kind of the departments together. So if I have, and let me go here to the inventory. So I'm going to go down here to the bottom. We have a negative inventory listing. Okay, we don't like this report, but it's helpful. So right now I have quite a few instances of negative inventory. Now, let me be clear. QuickBooks does not like, well, no accounting system likes, but QuickBooks does not like negative inventory because that's our focus today, right, is the desktop. It will allow it if we allow it, meaning, let me come back over here to our preferences and I can show you what that means. So right here, I have the multiple sites, right? If I say, if this will cause it to go negative, I want to block that transaction. And that means if I try to enter an invoice, it will stop. They cannot save it until the inventory gets fixed for that item or group of items, in which case then I can go ahead. If I have an assembly build, it will put it in a pending status, so that because I can't build it if I don't have enough raw material. So if we're looking at it where I want to protect my accounting system, but I need to make sure my workflow is accurate, I want to make sure that I don't allow a negative quantity, right? So in this case, because I have some, I would recommend, if this was a client of mine, I would recommend, okay, every morning you need to come in and run this report, or at the end of the day, right? Depends on your workflow during the day, right? We always invoiced in the morning. And so, but it would take until noon. So I would wait until the morning and look at yesterday and say, okay, we have these. I need to go figure out why and start chasing them down, right? Because initially we didn't have it to not allow negative. And then I got tired of chasing. So then I added the negative and we got it fixed at the beginning instead of me having to do the running. So, but if we run this every day, we can see which ones are negative, and then we can find out maybe there's a piece broken. Maybe we're not getting the receipts to our receiving team until late in the day, but we're invoicing in the morning. Okay, well, we need to fix that, right? Because that's a broken process. So these are things that we can help you with if you're not sure. But this is a very crucial report because we want to make sure that this is always a blank report if possible. The other one that I love is our inventory stock status. Now, because I have the site, I have 3 of these. A lot of times you'll see just 2 if you don't have multiple sites turned on. I'm going to go to the first one. So for our stock status, it looks very much like our inventory valuation summary report, right? It has the items. If we're using categories, it'll have that too. It does show our preferred vendor, and these are important. If we've established a reorder point, and if you're not sure what a reorder point, it allows us to make sure that we never allow our inventory to get below a certain point. So as you can see down here, I have some of these for these inventory stock items. And that way, especially if these are a little slower to come in, right? If we're having trouble, maybe supply chain issues, we may want to up those reorder points so that we have more time to get more in. We just have to review that. I will say it's important to review these on a regular basis, okay? If there is something that is easy to get and we don't want too many, then our max point will also allow us to say, hey, wait, we have over 100, we need to back off, okay? But in this case, we have a negative quantity here. We do have 10 that we've promised a customer. And because I have some pending assemblies, I even have some that I still need to fulfill those. So I basically have a negative 601 dozen that I need to get. Right now, as you can see, I have only placed an order for 2, right? And that last amount was done on 9/24. So I will need to make sure that I order some more of that item to make sure that I get there. Now, this report is very helpful, especially for those that I have the preferred vendor, because when I go here to create a purchase order, if I have something that I need more of, it's going to list them here. It will give me my vendor. I can click here and then I can create a purchase order, right? Because I can say, I know I need 165. I'm going to go ahead because I know I'm going to need some more maybe. The customer has already told me they need some more. I'm going to go ahead and change this to 200. I can create the PO and it will go ahead and put that on here. And as you can see, when it says auto created, it means I've used that report to do that. Even if I click into it, it looks just like a standard purchase order. It's just filled in all this information, including the vendor for me. My favorite report. All right. Now, and as you can see, right, I now have 202 on my POs combined because of that one we just created. Go back in here for our inventory. Now, let me just go through a few of these. I know we're getting close on time, so I want to make sure I cover these. So because I have the lot numbers and the bins on, I'm going to have a few extra reports here as well, not just the location. But if I need to see a transaction list by lot number, it will allow me, moved over, it will allow me to look at that item, right? And then it'll show me if I have any. In this case, I don't, okay? But it makes it easy to look those up. If I'm not able to find it, right, then I can, let me go back in here. And if I'm not able to find it, right, then I can run additional reports. So we should be able to see it there. But mine, because it does require a bin, means that I probably either haven't received anything or I received it to the wrong item. Okay, our inventory evaluation summary is very similar to the stock status that's behind it. It just shows our actual inventory. Now, this report is very important because this number down here, as of this date, should match the balance sheet for that same time frame. So this should be the same thing that's on the balance sheet, because the balance sheet has that asset account. And if those don't match, we have a problem. I mean, somebody probably posted to the asset account in error, and we need to go fix that, because that's another indication that our workflow may need some tweaking. All right, we also have, for using the by site, I can also narrow it down that way as well. Do this, and you can see I can look at the drop ship. I'm going to go ahead and look at the main warehouse, and it gives me that information. All of these reports are customizable. Now, if it's a summary report, as you know, you're limited on what you can, but you can definitely filter if you're looking for certain things. Very useful. Right. No, and then if we are using assemblies, we can have our pending builds reports here too. If we're doing physical inventory, we can see that. We also can do cycle counts, and cycle counts are great because you can do cycle count. If we go in here and you can see the cycle count. If you do a cycle count, oops, not going to let me today. It will allow us, right, to create a new cycle count. We can look at a certain location, right? We can choose certain items. Let's do these. And I used to do this weekly. So if there were times when the team was going to be slow, or maybe it was raining and they couldn't work outside, then they could help me with the cycle count, in which case they would be able to get a report, because you can export this to Excel. They get a report, they go count them, right? And this tells them where we want them to count. And then if their numbers are different, then we need to go figure out why, right? Maybe somebody put one in another bin. Maybe they picked it up, moved it to a customer center, or forgot to record it, something like that. But the cycle counts allow us to test our workflow to make sure that everything is accurate and that we're keeping up with the inventory the way we're supposed to. Okay, so if you're not sure on the cycle counts, please let us know, because these are probably, in addition to the negative inventory, the cycle counts are really quick ways to indicate if we have a process, or maybe we've got a new person, right, and they've deviated from the process because they didn't know. These will help us identify those. And the other side of this, cycle counts, especially if we're doing them weekly or monthly, they will help us with the month-end or year-end inventories. Now, I don't usually recommend a month-end physical inventory, but we used to have to do one every year. Most of you probably do for our income tax, right? So if we're doing cycle counts throughout the year, then our inventory at the end of the year should be better, because we're managing it instead of letting it manage us. Right, and that's what we want to do. We want to be the reason that our numbers are right. We want to know that they're right. We want to have confidence in what we have in our system. And so making sure that we can trust means we have to manage it. We have to work with it and work on it, right? So this is a good way to do that. All right, well, I do appreciate everyone being here with me today. It's definitely been fun. I always enjoy talking about inventory and how to manage it and make the system better. If you have any questions, please let us know. I apologize for not having time to go through questions. There's just a lot to cover today. But feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions, and we can be there to help you get those resolved.